Welcome to AI Security Ops, the podcast where we cut through the hype and explore the real-world intersection of artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. Each week we examine how AI is reshaping both sides of the security landscape, the threats we face, and the defenses that we're building. I'm Derek, and I'm joined by Bronwyn and Brian, as per the usual. And this episode is going to be a news episode because we don't talk about the news enough on the regular BHIS news show or other webcasts. Or maybe it's just because there's a crap ton of AI and security news. They all seem to go hand in hand today. And unlike the actual news show, you don't have to drink every time you say AI. And as usual, this show is brought to you by Black Hills Information Security, where we do penetration testing, adversary emulation, purple team engagements, red team engagements. Pretty much, if it's got the word security in it, we will consult and help you with it. And then Anti-Siphon delivers hands-on practitioner-led training built around real attacks and tools so that you can apply what you learn immediately. So, without further ado, let's get into the first story where it is from the Hacker News, where N-Day is becoming N-Hour and how patching faster won't save you, which sounds terrible. And so this article is basically where some researchers at Anthropic are claiming that the time has gone down to hours where N-days will be found. And so I guess their tag, their hook here is reverse engineering a patch used to take weeks. Mythos does it in an hour. And I think that they say in the article, the traditional playbook assumed you had at least a few weeks to patch. You don't anymore, not even close. I don't remember getting the memo on that playbook. I don't think I've ever told a client you have a few weeks to patch. I think, I think my take on it, like what my advice has been, and this is what before I worked at BHIS, and so this is going back over a decade, which makes me officially old, that I never said that you had weeks or months to patch. I think my thing was apply it immediately and fix what breaks. If you're not doing that, and that was a decade ago, you're behind the curve, because the assumption is that the reverse engineering the patch is the 0 day, and I would disagree. I would say that it doesn't matter if it was AI that found the flaw or, Mythos, or doesn't matter if Mythos is 2 hours, quicker than Opus 4.8. You're making the assumption that no one else has found that in that software. And I think that's a pretty big assumption, right? You cannot make the assumption that there's not a threat actor on the planet that hasn't already found that vulnerability. So if you're patching, you're already behind that curve. That's why we have things like defense in depth.
Yeah, yep. I think that's a good point. And to take just a step back quick for the viewers who aren't aware, what we mean when we're talking about N-days. So you probably heard the term 0 day, which is that you have found a vulnerability that is not actively being patched or fixed. Like the vendor is not actively working to fix that. The community is not actively working to fix it. To Derek's point, it's likely that you're not the only one who has found it at that point.
World's a big place. The internet's a big place.
Yeah, but likely it's not known. So that's 0 day. Versus N-day or 1 day, or in this case, as they're calling it, an N-hour or 1 hour. This comes after the patch is released or the fix is released, and people will do what's called patch diffing, where basically they look at, okay, what's the update that was released? How does that differ from what we had before? And it's big, especially in the Windows ecosystem, with Patch Tuesday rolls out, and you do patch diffing to see what has changed, because once you see what has changed, you can say, oh, I see what the problem is, and then you can do an exploit for it. And so what this article is really getting at is how quickly, though, that process it's been accelerated in terms of that turnaround time.
And this is a big issue. We've been talking about it extensively on the news, and the patching has always lagged behind developing exploits because patching is hard. And of course, now you can't even patch without having your patch be used against you. It's
You just
I
shut all the
really
computers
don't.
off. So
There are times where I actually take a
a Luddite
digital
approach. It's actually kind of funny that
unplug.
my 15-year-old is like that. She's like, I don't want to do a job where I have to sit behind a desk every day. It's like, I can understand that. Good luck with that.
I never wanted to grow up and be a keyboard jockey, but here we are.
Hey, I do love it. But I guess, I don't know. Look, I am not going to disagree that AI, regardless of if it's Mythos, even though I'm a little tired about hearing about Mythos. I mean, how old is it now? Like 4 months,
Few
maybe?
months.
I don't know. All I do know that Fable is like unusable for me, but thanks folks at OpenAI, because 5.6 Soul is not. It's pretty good. But I digress. I never really thought that I had weeks to patch. Like I said, I never made that recommendation to clients. My recommendation, and this is why I kind of disagree with the premise. Like, yeah, sure, we're finding vulnerabilities more. It's harder to patch. We're actually finding so many that, what's the term? Vulnpocalypse. Like, I would hate to be on the receiving end of all of this, right? And then weeding through what's real and not and high impact. And so, yes, vulnerabilities are getting found quicker and when arguably have a lot more impact, like we're going to talk about next. But I mean, I always thought defense in depth was a better strategy. Where sure, it might be that you have, like we'll talk about here in a little bit, a WordPress vulnerability, but perhaps it would be a good idea to take other mitigating factors so that the WordPress vulnerability that we'll talk about here in a minute has less impact, or it doesn't apply to you because you're not doing certain things. And so, and that's the concept of defense in depth. And, like from a client perspective, if you have a Windows desktop that you're getting patches for, and there are threat actors out there trying to develop end days for it, and it takes 5 hours, well, that's great if it took 5 hours or 5 days or 5 weeks, because hopefully my EDR solution and my upstream network defenses and my other, monitoring and logging, all that stuff should help mitigate that. I mean, it's all a game about mitigating risk. Like, this isn't a problem that's like solvable. Like, what would be the recommendation? Don't use software.
Yeah, exactly.
And as a recovering developer myself, I know for a fact I've watched the evolution in terms of how frequent software updates would get pushed. I have a sneaking suspicion that, call me crazy, but at some point in the foreseeable future, AIs will be finding, patching, and pushing updates to software live in a matter of minutes, and that will become a new norm. Hopefully within my lifetime.
Yeah, and I still think, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a cynic, or I don't know, maybe I just got older and wiser. Either way, and I think this article towards the end kind of makes me think that too, that I look at this as kind of, FUD, right? Like fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Like, oh no, we need to do this, and at the end, I think is really the kind of onus for this is like, hey, buy our automated pen testing platform, and we'll find this stuff for you. And you're not using Mythos, and just because Mythos said this, then yeah, I don't know. But like I said, just because I think that there are ulterior motives at play, like I think that I personally don't think that Mythos was too dangerous to release to the public, but whatever. I think it's more of a marketing or a defense ploy. But either way, vulnerabilities are getting found faster. And that is where we come to the next story, which is, and I'm sure y'all probably did talk about this on the news, the WordPress vulnerabilities. I didn't see the news this week.
I don't know that we talked about this one specifically. I think this one came out. Yeah, I mean, this article is dated the 21st. It's dated today.
Yeah. Well,
So no, we
so
didn't
I
get
think
a
it was
chance to
actually,
do this one.
yeah, it was over the weekend, I think, because, or late last week, maybe, because definitely folks in our continuous pen testing group. So even though I just, got, even though I was derogatory towards someone, shameless plug, our CPT group at Black Hills is already using this against our our customers for continuous pen testing, and that's the CV 2026-63030 and 60137 that are combined WP2 shell. I think I read earlier today that they were estimating that something like 60% of WordPress sites are vulnerable, and that is amazing to me. That's like half the internet. I don't know.
Yeah,
Pretty close.
it's a lot. It's a big blast radius.
Yeah, and so basically, it's what remote
AI
RCE.
tells phrase blast radius.
Yeah, blast
Are you an
radius.
AI, Brian? I'm
Maybe.
sorry, I couldn't help. It's just within the past week, all of a sudden, blast radius is showing up in all of them. Don't know why. Must have been something on Reddit. Anyway, go on.
And so maybe I'll contradict just what I said, because the claim here is that that the researchers that found this did it with it was discovered by Searchlight Cyber using GPT-5.6 Sol in a little over 10 hours. And so if that is true, that, this undiscovered vulnerability, because you got to think that WordPress is hammered on by everybody and their brother with AI agents and harnesses trying to find vulnerabilities. Like, I have a side project going on that I mentioned many episodes ago with Skippy and finding vulns, and it's actually found some kind of cool stuff, but it's not my primary focus. But if they found this in WordPress with a new model, then I am kind of impressed, because I think WordPress is probably going to be pretty attacked, right? And so yeah, it looks like that AI, building off of the first story, found a pretty serious vulnerability that affects a good chunk of the internet.
Yeah, we did actually talk about this, and one of the other things that came up while you were talking, back when I was still doing software development in our engineering department, we had some really amazing QC people. And one guy in particular, he could come up with edge cases like no one ever saw. And I don't know how his brain was able to find these weird ways of coming at our systems. And I bet if he had ever wanted to go into penetration testing, he would have been phenomenal at it. Because of the randomness that the probabilistic nature of the LLMs has inherently in it, I think it's better than, well, it certainly can operate more quickly than humans, but it may also be better at finding those weird edge cases, and probably because it's basically a numbers game where it has the ability to run through lots of, here's the normal options, well, let's do something weird, and that's when it goes into hallucination mode and gets all of these weird, wacky, creative ideas. So in the long run, I think that AI will be better in general at finding these weird flaws, because humans, we get very used to testing for success. And I don't think that the LLMs, when they're being sent on this, they're not going to have that same bias.
Yeah, so one of the things I thought was kind of interesting was that it's actually two CVEs that are chained together. And so chaining things, like, this is what you said, edge case in a different, connotation. Like the project that I'm working on, which is, external penetration testing with AI agents, one of the things we attempt to do is chain together vulnerabilities to make a higher impact. And that's what they're claiming happened here. So there's the first one's an entry point route confusion in the API that bypasses authentication. And then another one that's the remote execution part that builds on top of that authentication bypass. And so basically a chain together RCE. And I'm not claiming that we found this, but one of the things that our tool has done is it has chained together like authorization problems. Like it's found a key and then found where that key was used, which I'll just say impressed me a whole lot, right? Because that was the goal. And when I saw it working, I was like, holy crap, this actually works. So, and I don't know that that's the model. I think that's the harness. So I still kind of question, like, okay, yeah, I think that GPT-5.6 Soul is a great model, but is this the model or the harness? Because I don't know, like you were saying, I've definitely seen where some agents are more creative than other agents. Like I've seen that happen in our tool, but more often than not, consistency is going to come from like the harness. And I just wonder, what was the company that found this again? Oh crap. Searchlight Cyber. I'm assuming they have made a custom harness where they're trying to chain together stuff. And I think that to me is more impressive than the model. But anyway. All right. So the next one is an exposed server reveals an AI assisted phishing toolkit behind WebDAV malware campaign. So a malware operator left its delivery server wide open. I saw a post today by someone who works at I think it's Trusted Sec, Justin LZ. So if you're listening to this podcast, thanks for pointing this out, where I guess he had found that on some server somewhere, what was quite obviously a penetration tester's staging directory like left open to the public. So glad it's just not threat actors, pen testers do it. I would be lying if I said I had never accidentally left something like that open. But man, you got to be careful, right? You got to be careful with those staged listeners. But that's not really the interesting part. Humans make mistakes, right? But what the interesting part is the AI assisted phishing toolkit, which yeah, I mean, I guess it's no surprise that threat actors are using AI just like researchers are to find to enhance their threat actor capabilities. All right, so let's do the last one. I think maybe the best one for last. And again, I haven't watched the BHIS news, so I don't know if this is something that has been talked about, but the Jade Puffer Agentic attacks, the Jade Puffer ransomware, where there's a company that's claiming, I think it's Ankforge. I've never heard of them. No, sorry, that's the custom malware that focuses on encrypting AI assets, right? And so Jade Puffer is something that was found earlier this month, and the company is Sysdig, I think, that found it, and they were claiming that it was fully automated. It was the first fully automated agentic AI ransomware. And what does fully automated mean? Like there has to be a human somewhere, right? I mean, fully automated seems to indicate that the AI is off doing things on its own, right? I mean, the human gets the result at some point, right? Or is involved at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, you think so. Well, especially the way that it's titled too, that it almost makes it sound like the AI is what's asking for the ransom as well too. Like you gotta, I don't know, pay it out in like RAM or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and so I guess Sysdig was claiming that the AI agent adapted to technical difficulties in real time and optimized the intrusion mechanism to find the correct fix in less than a minute. Wait, is it using Mythos? Sounds pretty quick. Yeah, so that's actually one of the things that I was thinking about here recently. If you're a threat actor and you're attempting to use inference on the endpoint for your malware to be AI powered after delivery and then running and adapting with AI, how are you handling inference? What are you doing there? I don't think you're using AWS Bedrock, maybe I guess unless you steal an account or something. And so that if you're going to adapt and fix in less than a minute, I mean, you have some kind of, I mean, anybody who's used local AI and used like, small GPUs, that's not what's happening here, right? So I'm guessing like stolen accounts, maybe.
Yeah, that could be if they, like you said, if they got access to keys or something that they're using there. Yeah, it's hard to tell for sure.
But perhaps more interesting is like, or interesting part also is like what it actually targets and encrypts. So AI model checkpoints, Hugging Face safe tensor files, PyTorch and TensorFlow models, GGUF and GGML weights. Oh, that sounds like all kinds of fun stuff. Parquet formats, training data sets. How, man, what like, is this in addition to all the text files too? Like,
well, and to improve performance, the malware is only encrypting selected portions of each file rather than the entire file contents. That's kind of interesting. Speaking of outside the box. Now, it makes sense though when you think about it. Any malicious actor is a predator, and predators are always going to go after targets that are abundant and are vulnerable. And right now, the state of AI technology is still very vulnerable. And so personally, I see this as a logical evolution on the part of malicious actors. It's like, of course, you're going to want to go after LLM models in addition to attacking the harnesses, because as more and more businesses implement LLMs in their tool offerings, web apps, infrastructure, etc., those are going to become more and more valuable targets. Why wouldn't they want to go after them?
I mean, it seems like that, I don't know, like the target's kind of niche in my opinion though, right? Because look, I'm actually downloading safe tensors at the moment, but I'm not a normal person, right? I just wonder, like in a quote normal company, are these file formats something that most companies will have? I don't think so. Like most of them are going to be paying Anthropic or OpenAI and using like a service. So this almost seems like to me that they're going after, the more technical end developer aspect, folks who are doing more custom kind of stuff. And typically those are the folks who have more access in an environment. And so,
yes.
Yeah. So,
well, no disagreement. And I think that this is a hint of things to come.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Ransomware going after AI files. This is great. So, well, that's the end of the stories that I had for today. And so, thanks for hanging out and listening. And as always, keep on prompting.